Today's story is not about kings or queens. It is not about fairy tales, legends, or history written in books. This is a story about you, about the questions you carry in silence, about the weight you feel even when nothing seems wrong, about the moment when the world expects you to be strong, but your heart feels tired. This is a story about mankind, about self-belief, and about the quiet search for meaning that lives inside us all. And sometimes, when the noise of the world becomes too loud, when the answers refuse to come, we don't find meaning by searching harder. We find it by slowing down, by walking away from the crowd, and by listening to a voice that speaks in silence. This is where our story begins, on a quiet mountain path with a tired traveler and a monk who teaches not with words, but with truth. A young traveler began his climb just before dawn. The mountain path was narrow and quiet, wrapped in soft mist, and every step forward made his legs ache. Yet the weight in his heart was heavier than the weight on his body. He had walked many roads in his life, roads of ambition, of comparison, and of regret, but none of them had led him to peace. The more he chased answers, the more distant they seemed. As he climbed higher, the world below slowly faded. The noise of people, expectations, and endless opinions grew silent, leaving only the sound of his breath and the rhythm of his footsteps. He had come to this mountain not out of curiosity, but out of exhaustion. His mind was full of questions he could no longer ignore, and his heart was tired of pretending it was strong. At the top of the mountain lived an old monk, a man known not for speaking, but for listening. They said he did not give answers, he revealed understanding. People arrived with heavy hearts and left lighter, though they often could not explain why. The traveler did not know what the monk would say to him. All he knew was that he could not continue walking his life the way he had been. When the small stone hut finally appeared through the mist, the traveler stopped. He took a deep breath, bowed his head, and felt something unfamiliar: hope. For the first time in a long while, he was not searching for success or approval. He was simply searching for meaning. And with that quiet longing in his heart, the traveler stepped forward, unaware that this moment would change the way he understood life forever. The old monk welcomed the traveler without a word. He did not ask why the traveler had come, nor did he offer comfort or advice. Instead, he turned toward the hearth and placed a kettle on the fire. The faint sound of water warming filled the small stone hut, settling into the silence like a gentle heartbeat. The traveler stood quietly, unsure of what to say. His questions pressed against his chest, yet something about the monk's calm presence made him hesitate. After a moment, the traveler finally spoke, his voice low and tired. He spoke of his efforts, his struggles, and his endless search for meaning. Then, almost in a whisper, he asked the question that had followed him all his life: what is the meaning of life? The monk did not answer. He lifted the kettle and slowly poured tea into a small cup. The liquid rose steadily, reaching the rim, yet the monk did not stop. Tea spilled over the edge, dripping onto the wooden floor. The traveler watched in confusion, then in alarm. "Master," he said, stepping forward, "the cup is full. No more can fit." The monk gently set the kettle down and looked at the traveler with a soft smile. "Yes," he said quietly, "and so are you." The traveler froze. "You have come to me," the monk continued, already overflowing, with fear of failure, regret from the past, expectations from others, and comparisons that leave no room for peace. He pointed to the cup as the tea continued to drip. When the cup is full, nothing new can be poured in. Wisdom is the same. The traveler lowered his eyes. For the first time, he understood that his mind had never been empty. It had always been crowded with noise, worries, and endless demands. He had been searching for answers while carrying too much to receive them. The monk lifted the cup and gently emptied it onto the ground. The sound of the last drops falling echoed softly in the hut. "Before you can understand life," the monk said, "you must make space for it." The traveler sat down slowly, his heart heavy yet strangely relieved. In that quiet moment, he realized something important. This journey was not about adding more knowledge to his life, but about letting go of what no longer served him. And in the silence that followed, the lesson settled deeper than words ever could. The monk rose and stepped outside the hut. The traveler followed, the cool mountain air brushing against his tired face. Before them, the valley stretched wide and silent, with trees standing patiently under the open sky. Nothing rushed, nothing resisted. The monk bent down and picked up a dry leaf resting on the ground. He held it between his fingers for a moment, then placed it gently on his open palm. "This leaf," the monk said softly, "did not fight the season that changed it." The traveler watched closely. "It did not cling to the branch when autumn arrived," the monk continued. "It did not argue with the wind or fear the fall." He lifted his hand and released the leaf. It floated slowly through the air, turning gently until it touched the earth once more. "This is how life moves," the monk said, "not in straight lines, not by force, but by trust." The traveler felt something stir inside him. "People suffer," the monk continued, "not because life is cruel, but because they try to control what was never meant to be controlled." He looked at the traveler kindly. "The more tightly you hold life, the more it slips through your fingers." The wind passed through the trees, and the leaves whispered softly, as if agreeing. "When you resist change," the monk said, "you create pain. When you accept it, you create peace." The traveler thought of the moments he had fought, failures he could not undo, futures he could not predict, expectations he could not fulfill. For the first time, he saw them clearly, not as enemies, but as passing winds. The monk placed his hand over his heart. "Let life move," he said. "Flow with it, not against it." The traveler closed his eyes and took a slow breath. Something loosened within him. He did not feel enlightened. He did not feel complete, but he felt lighter. And in that small release, he understood. Control had never been strength. Trust was. The traveler stood quietly, the leaf's slow fall still echoing in his mind. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice softer than before. He confessed that he was afraid of choosing the wrong path, afraid of losing what little he had, afraid that one day he would look back and realize he had wasted his life. The monk listened without interruption. Then he nodded gently, as if he had heard these words many times before. "Fear," the monk said calmly, "is the mind living in a future that does not yet exist." He placed a hand on the traveler's shoulder. "It creates stories of loss before loss has ever arrived." The traveler lowered his gaze. "And regret," the monk continued, "is the mind refusing to leave a past that cannot be changed." His voice remained steady, without judgment. "It is the weight of yesterday carried into today." The monk then pointed to the ground beneath their feet. But life, he said softly, does not live in the future or the past. He pressed his foot gently into the earth. It lives here. The wind brushed past them again, cool and present. The monk took a slow breath and looked at the traveler. When you return to this moment, he said, fear loses its power and regret loosens its grip. The traveler closed his eyes. For a brief moment, there was no past to fix and no future to fear, only breath, stillness, and now. And in that quiet awareness, he felt something rare, peace without effort. The monk returned to the hut and poured tea once more, this time into an empty cup. He filled it slowly and stopped before it reached the edge. The traveler noticed. Chase happiness, the monk said gently, and it will always run ahead of you, just out of reach, like a shadow at sunset. He handed the cup to the traveler. But accept life as it is, he continued, and happiness no longer needs to be chased. It arrives quietly. The traveler held the cup with both hands. The warmth seeped into his fingers, steady and comforting. Peace, the monk said, is not found by fixing everything. It is found by allowing life to be what it is. The traveler took a slow sip. The tea was simple, no sweetness, no bitterness, yet it felt complete. What should I do with my life? The traveler asked, his voice no longer trembling. The monk smiled. Walk when it is time to walk. Rest when it is time to rest. Love when the moment invites you, and when something must end, let it go with grace. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in soft gold. The traveler felt a stillness settle within him, not the stillness of giving up, but the stillness of understanding. He realized then that happiness was never missing. He had simply been standing too far away to see it. The sky slowly changed its colors as the sun moved toward the horizon. Gold melted into orange, and orange softened into quiet blue. The mountain stood still, as it always had, watching lives arrive with questions and leave with understanding. The monk and the traveler stood together in silence. No more lessons were needed. The words had already settled where words could not reach. After a long moment, the monk spoke one final time. The meaning of life, he said softly, is not waiting for you at the end of your journey. The traveler listened, his heart open. It is not hidden in success, wealth, or recognition, the monk continued, nor is it found by becoming someone else. He turned and looked at the traveler with gentle eyes. The meaning of life is found in how you live each step, how gently you walk through the world, how kindly you treat your breath, and how fully you meet the moment in front of you. The traveler felt the truth of it settle deep inside him. He understood then that life was not asking him to arrive somewhere. It was asking him to be present where he already stood. The monk smiled. When you stop searching for meaning, he said, you begin to live it. The traveler bowed deeply. This time he did not bow as a seeker desperate for answers. He bowed as one who had learned to listen. As he began his descent down the mountain, the path remained the same, stones, bends, and uneven ground. But the traveler was different. His steps were slower, lighter, and unburdened. He was no longer rushing toward a future or carrying the weight of the past. With each step, he breathed. With each breath, he lived. And without realizing it, he carried the meaning of life with him, quietly, gently, and fully alive in the present moment. And so, dear listener, the story does not truly end here, because the mountain still stands, the wind still moves, and the quiet lessons of the monk live on, not in words, but in moments, moments when life feels heavy, moments when the answers feel far away, moments when all you can do is pause and breathe. Remember this: you do not need to rush through life to find its meaning. You do not need to become someone else to feel complete. Meaning is already here, in the way you walk, in the way you love, and in the way you meet each moment with patience. So tonight, as you rest your thoughts, carry this lesson gently with you. Life's meaning isn't found by searching harder. It's found by living softer, right where you are. Until our next story, slow down, breathe deeply, and be kind to your journey.